Hi there, in this course we are going to be getting up and running with Tailwind CSS and Alpine JS. This course is for people who have a basic understanding of HTML and CSS that want to get up and running with Tailwind or Alpine. This course also covers some JavaScript basics, but don't worry if you don't have much or any JavaScript experience. We take the time to learn these basics where needed as we complete the course. The things you're going to need to complete this course are a text editor and a browser. In this course I use Sublime Text and Google Chrome. It's 100% okay for you to use whatever you feel comfortable with. This course isn't so much about building a website from start to finish. It's more about giving you the tools you need to start and finish your next project. We will build this homepage and we'll also talk about some practical and some not so practical examples. So if you're looking to get started with Tailwind and Alpine, I'll see you in the next video. Hi there, in this video we are going to have a chat about the Tailwind CSS framework. If you head over to tailwindcss.com, you can have a look at their marketing page, and it says here that you can rapidly build modern websites without ever leaving your HTML. A utility-first CSS framework packed with classes like flex, padding top, text center that can be composed to build any design directly in your markup. So what does that actually mean? Tailwind is basically a massive set of classes that you apply directly to your HTML elements, and each of those classes maps to maybe one or two CSS styles rather than having an external style sheet where you might have a class like homepage hero paragraph. You actually just put all of your styles on the p tag itself. So if we inspect this element and we scroll down a little bit, we can see that these are all of the Tailwind classes that make up this or style this p tag. If we copy this class and paste it in over here, we can see that it just has one style of margin top, and that's what makes it a utility first framework, is each of these classes just map to one or two CSS styles. So rather than being given classes that map to already styled elements like a form input or a large heading, Tailwind gives you the building blocks to make your own. In the first few videos of this course, we are going to dive straight into building out a homepage with Tailwind. And I think that'll quickly give you an idea of what it's like to work with Tailwind. Also head over to the Tailwind marketing page, have a good scroll through here, and I'll see you in the next video. Hi there, let's have a chat about Alpine JS and what it's going to do for us. Alpine is a JavaScript framework, and it's going to help us build features on our site like this responsive navigation, or something as simple as hiding or showing content. Maybe they are tabs or a carousel. Let's have a look at this simple example on the Alpine homepage. You can see here there is a div that wraps around a button and a span tag. This xData directive is what connects your HTML to Alpine. It lets Alpine know that everything that's contained inside this div is now a Alpine component. Inside of our xData directive, we have a variable called open, and it's been set to false by default. Next, we have our button, and that has a onClick event, and when this button is clicked, we're setting open to true. So basically what this click event is doing is just telling Alpine that when we click this button, we would like to do something, and in this case we are setting open equal to true. And the last part of our component is this span tag, and it uses the xShow directive. And what this does is uses this open variable that we've been setting to false or true to decide if this content should be shown on the page or not. So every time we click this button, we are going to show the span tag. In fact, why don't we quickly copy this code example and make it work. Let's open up Sublime text. We'll call this index.html and save it to the desktop. Let's make a empty HTML document. And then we can paste in our example code down there. We'll move this script tag up into the head, and we'll just add HTTPS. Let's save that. Now I'm pretty sure that that should be enough to make our little component work. So let's go over to Finder, Desktop, and we can open up our file with Google Chrome. Now if I click on this expand button over here, we should see our content appear. And there you go, that's our first Alpine component working. Let's jump back into the code and make a little change, because at the moment if we keep clicking on this, it doesn't toggle it open and close, we just always see the content. So if we go back to Sublime text, and what we're going to say is when we click on this button, we're going to set open to equal not open. So we're saying that open will equal the opposite of what it does now. And if we make sure that we've saved that, go back to Chrome, refresh the page. And now if we click our expand button, we can see that that toggles the content open and closed. Okay, now that we have our component working, let's go over the code again and just highlight the parts that are Alpine. So let's go back to Sublime text, and this is the code that represents our Alpine component here. Now the first piece of Alpine code is xData, and that is what defines our Alpine component. It's telling Alpine that everything within this div tag is now a Alpine component. Also within xData we have our open variable that we are setting to false by default. Xdata can contain more than one variable, but that's a slightly more advanced example that we'll look at later. Then the next piece of Alpine code we have is this @click event. And what this is doing is when we click on the button, we are telling Alpine to update our open variable, and what we're setting it to is not open, which is basically the opposite of what open is now. So if open is false and we click the button, we're saying we'd like to set it to the opposite, which is true. And then obviously when it's true, we're setting it to false. So we can keep clicking this button and toggling the open variable to true and false. Then the very last piece of Alpine code is xShow, and that is deciding whether we should display or hide the span tag. And to do that, it uses the open variable. So when open is true, we'll see this content, and when open is false, we won't. Just before we finish up for this video, let's jump back into Google Chrome and have a look what Alpine is doing behind the scenes. So let's go to Google Chrome, and we are going to inspect our button. Now we can see our span tag that Alpine has added a inline style display none. So this is what's hiding our span tag by default. And if we click on the button, you can see that Alpine has removed that style, and we can see our content. And each time we click it, style display none, click it again, and it's removed the inline style, and we can see our content. There's obviously a lot more that we can do with Alpine, and that was only a very basic example. But hopefully it gives you a good idea of how easy Alpine is to use. And we're going to move on to some more practical examples later on in the course. Hi there, in this video we are going to add Tailwind and Alpine to a new project. In the last video we talked about Alpine, and I skipped ahead a little by showing you a practical example. So in this video we're going to pump the brakes a little bit. We are going to slow down and get back to some basics. The first thing that we need to do is open up our text editor. I'm going to be using Sublime text for this course. You can use whatever text editor that you're comfortable with. If you don't have a text editor, then Sublime Text does have a free trial that will be enough to get you through this course. So we need to create a file called index.html, and we're going to save that to our desktop for now. And this will eventually be the homepage of our project. And we're going to need some HTML to get started with. So in Sublime Text, if you type exclamation mark and tab, it'll scaffold out this snippet for you. Don't worry if you're not using Sublime or that didn't work for you. I'll put this snippet in the exercise files for you to copy and paste. Right, so now we're ready to add Tailwind and Alpine. Let's start with Tailwind by heading over to their documentation page. If you go to tailwindcss.com and click on docs over here on the right hand corner, and if you look just down here you'll see the installation guide, and we are going to use the CDN link. These options here all require us to get set up with npm. npm is basically a JavaScript package management tool. It would take us a while to get set up with npm, and I just feel like it would be a little bit too much for this course. Also, you'd need to be comfortable with using terminal or the command line. I just feel like that would be a step too far for this tutorial, and there's nothing wrong with using the CDN link. In saying that, if you're interested in learning how to set up your Tailwind projects with npm, let me know on Twitter. I'll leave a link to my profile in the description. If enough people ask for it, I'll add it to the end of the course. Right, so let's copy the CDN link and add it to our project. It's just down here in this code sample, and we're going to copy all of that script tag. Copy, and we're going to paste it into the head under the title tag and hit save. Let's just quickly test that we have Tailwind set up correctly. So we're going to add a h1 tag, we'll call it hello, and we'll give it a class of text lime 500, save. Now we're going to need to open up our index file in Google Chrome. So if we go to Finder, Desktop, Index, open with Google Chrome, and mine opened up over here. I'll just drag it onto the screen. And now we can see that we have a lime green hello. Now that we have Tailwind installed, let's do the same for Alpine. If you go to alpinejs.dev, and over here on the right hand side click on the link to the docs. Let's copy the CDN link that's down here in the code sample, and we're going to paste that into our project just under the Tailwind CDN link. If we head back to the docs, we are going to copy this h1 tag, put that in our project. We're going to replace the h1 tag we already have, save, and we'll add our class back in of text lime 500, save. Now if we go back to Chrome and refresh the page on our project, and we can see that Alpine is also installed and working. Hi there, Future Mail here. Somebody brought up a good point, and that is, how do we know that Alpine is working? So if we go back to our h1 tag, and we can see that we have two Alpine directives that we've added to our h1 tag. The first one is data, and that contains a message variable that we've assigned I love Alpine to. Then over here we have our text directive where we are outputting message, which is the variable back here in data. And what text is doing is adding our message variable into the h1 tag. So it's adding some text into here for us. So if I undo that and we go back to Chrome, and if we right click on this and inspect it, we can see that inside of the h1 tag it contains I love Alpine. So just quickly one more time, we have a message variable which we've assigned I love Alpine. Then we have our text directive that's outputting our message variable into the h1 tag. So we're adding I love Alpine into this h1. So that covers getting Tailwind and Alpine installed in your project. In the next video we're going to move on to the homepage. Hey, I hope you're enjoying the course. It's part of a larger course that goes into more detail. If you're interested in learning more, there's a link in the description. There are also links to my other courses. If you need any help or have questions, please leave a comment. I try to check these as often as possible. And please don't forget to like and subscribe. Hi there, in this video we're going to dive straight into building the homepage for our project. I'm gonna build out this page without stopping too much along the way to explain what's happening. I just want to give you a feel for what it's like to work with Tailwind and Alpine. Feel free to follow along if you like, or you can just come along for the ride. If you are coding along, you can always pause it and go back if you need to. Then in the next videos we'll slow down, we'll recap what we've just done and break it all down piece by piece. If you are following along, you'll be able to find the link to this XD mockup in the exercise files. Okay, so let's jump back over to our code and make a start. So let's get rid of our h1 tag that we use for testing. And on the body tag, we're going to add a class of text zinc100. This is going to style the text for the website. Then we're going to need a div inside of our body tag with a class of container and mx auto. That's going to give our site a width. And let's add another div in here with a class of background teal 800 and also a padding of 6. Okay, let's just add a p tag in here with some random text. We'll save it and we'll just go over to our browser and see where we are with things. Let's close that down, and I'm also going to close down my console here. And if we right click on our website, go inspect just to open it up, just so you've got a fresh start. And if we click on the second icon in here, this mode lets us inspect things in a responsive view. And what I'm going to do over here on the right hand side is this little grab handle. I'm going to drag things in so it's more of a mobile size. This isn't an exact science, but it just gives us a good place to start from. So let's have a look at our mock-up and see what to do next. So the navigation is made up of two parts. We've got the logo on the left and these links on the right. So let's jump back over to our code and make a start on the navigation. So for the navigation, we're going to need a div that contains the nav itself. Then we'll need two other divs that are for the left and right elements. And we'll need one A tag in here for the logo. This is Scott Green Tea. Then inside this second div, we'll need three A tags that are for each of those icons. And for now, we're just gonna add 1, 2, 3 in there, just as a placeholder. Then on this parent div, which is like the container for our navigation, we are going to add a class of flex and justify between and a margin bottom of 6. And for the logo, we're going to add a class of text XL. And for the Scott part of the logo, we're going to wrap that in a span tag and give it a class of font bold. And for the right hand side of our navigation, we want all of these A tags to line up, so we're also going to give this a class of flex, and we'd like the items to all be centered. Now I think the next step would be to replace our placeholders here with some icons, and for that we're going to use SVGs. So let's open up the exercise files for this video, and you'll see a home, a menu and a search SVG file. I'm just going to right click on those and open with Sublime text. I'm just going to pull this down a little bit so it's easier to jump between the windows. So let's just have a quick look at our mock-up just to remind us what order these go in. So we have search, home and the menu. So let's start with search. We're just going to copy this whole block of text and we are going to paste it in right in between that A tag. And let's do the same for home and the menu. So let's get the home, copy that, replace the 2 with the home, and number 3 was the menu. Let's copy that, paste those in and hit save. So let's go and have a look at the site in our browser and see how we're going. So I've just given that a refresh and we can only see the search icon, and if I inspect that I can see that it already has a class that's giving it a width and a height. and these other two don't. So let's go back to the code and give them a width and a height and see if they appear. So let's just copy this class from the first SVG, and we're just going to paste it in there and paste it into this one too, and save. Back to the browser, refresh, and now we have our 3 SVGs. Our icons here aren't quite lining up properly, and I think it's because this last one has a margin right of 4. So let's just go and quickly fix that up, and we're just going to delete margin right 4, go back, give it a refresh, and there we go. That's looking a bit better now. So I think that's a pretty good first pass at our navigation section of this website. I'm just going to go and make one last tweak to this menu icon, and I'm just going to bump the width and the height up to 10 just to see if that increases the size to match these other icons. Right, let's go and have a look at our mockup and see what's next. So the next section under our nav is this middle part, which are these leaves, beautiful green tea to your door. So let's go and add that in. So under our navigation, which is this div here, so if we just change this to nav, we'll copy that, and I believe that is the closing div there. If we just follow that line down, yep, that's the closing div. So under there we're going to have another div, which is our middle section. Then we're going to need to go back to our exercise files and open up this leaves SVG. We'll copy that, we'll paste that in, fix our indenting. Right, now we'll need 2 p tags, one with beautiful green tea and the other with to your door. Now we know that they were all stacked on top of each other on the page, so we're going to go flex and flex col, and they're all fairly centered as well, so we can go item center and justify center. Let's save that and see where we're at. Okay, we're getting there. Let's go back to the code. So beautiful green tea was slightly larger than the other text, so we're going to say text, and we're going to say 5XL. We're going to say text yellow 100, and for the to your door we're going to go class text 2XL. Let's save that and have a look. Okay, getting there. I think we probably need to center that text as well. So let's go text center, have a look. Okay, that's looking better. I think we're starting to win. Let's go back to our mockup. So we're missing this border in between the 2 pieces of text. So let's go back to our code. Okay, and what we're going to need to do is for this to your door p tag is give it a class of border 1 of border top. We're also going to give it some padding top and some margin top of 4. So let's go back and see how that looks. Okay, now we have our border. Okay, let's go back to our mockup and see how we're going. So I feel like we're getting there. We've done the navigation and this section here. I know they don't match exactly at the moment, but we can always go back and refine things later on. So this video is taking a bit longer than I thought it would. We've still got this bottom section to do. So I think what I'll do is stop here and pick things up in the next video. Hi there. In this video we are going to finish off the bottom part of our homepage. we need to add in these two buttons. We have this testimonial area and this more reviews button. So let's jump back over to our code. Under this section here where we had our beautiful green tea to your door, we're going to add in a div. This will be the section for the two buttons. We're going to need two A tags for those buttons, and this one said learn more, and this was a buy now. We know that these two buttons were side by side, so we're going to need to give this a class of flex, and we'll justify those center. So to make these links look like buttons, we're going to give it a class of border 2, border zinc 100, rounded, padding on the x-axis of 4, padding on the y of 2, font bold, and because we want some space between the two buttons, we'll go margin right of 2. Now for this guy, we are going to do the same, border 2. This is going to have a border of teal 200 will be the color. It's also going to have a background of teal 200. Have rounded corners, px of 6, py of 2. That should be enough to get these looking like buttons. So let's go over to our browser and take a look. We'll give this a refresh. Okay, we still have a little bit more work to do. We need some spacing in here, and it looks like our text color isn't quite right. So let's go back over to the code and take a look. So if we make the font bold and give it a color of teal 800, and I think we also need some margin left on this one too, just to match the margin right that's on this other button. Let's just fix up that M. Okay, let's go and take a look. Okay, still have our spacing issue. So on this div that's above it, I'm just going to give it some margin bottom of 16. There we go. And while we're at it, we might as well add some margin bottom of 16 on this div too. Okay, I think our buttons are looking pretty good now. Let's just check our mockup. Yep, those are looking pretty good. So let's move on to this next review testimonial area. So let's jump back over to the code. So under our two buttons, we'll create another div. This will have a p tag for the testimonial itself. I'm just going to grab that text from the mockup, copy it from here, paste it in, and we'll just get rid of this name part because that's going to go below. And then under that we had the person's name and a button that were both side by side. So let's create another p tag for the name and a tag for the button. And we'd like those to be side by side, so we'll give that a class of flex and justify between. And for this a tag, we wanted that to be a button, so we're going to give that a few classes. A background of stone 300 will be the color. It had rounded corners, and we're going to make those a small radius. padding on the x-axis of 3, padding on the y of 2. I'm going to give it a text color of teal 800, and the text itself we're going to make small. And let's just go back to check what the button text was. More reviews, we'll copy that and paste it in here. So let's give that a save and see how we're going. Okay, now we have our testimonial. Looks like we just need a little more padding between that p tag and the div below. So let's go back to our code and we'll give this a class of margin bottom 4. Yep, that's looking a bit better now. I think that's about it for the Tailwind part of this homepage. We still have a little bit of work to do, but we can come back to that later. We need to add some Tailwind configuration so that our fonts and colors match 100%. And I know it might feel like we've rushed over some of that code, but once we've got the Alpine part working and our navigation is opening and closing, we can pump the brakes again and spend some time breaking things down and recapping what we've just done. Hi there, in this video we are going to build the navigation using Tailwind, and we're going to make it open and close using Alpine. So let's jump over to the code. So the first thing we're going to do is find our navigation tag, and if we scroll down to the mobile nav icon, and just under that we are going to make a div. This div is going to be the part of the navigation that pops out from the side. So it's going to need a few classes to get things started. We're going to give it a class of absolute for the positioning. It's going to be position left 0 and top 0. We're going to give it a Z index of 10 just to make sure that it appears above all the other content. Padding of 6, a background of zinc 100. Let's just go and take a quick look at our mock-up. So the navigation, I guess, is kind of two parts. We've got like this header section where we've got Scott green tea, a button to close it, and then we've got these links that appear in a list underneath. So back to the code, we'll have another div in here. This will be like the header section of our navigation. And we had those two items that we want to line up, so we'll go flex and justify between. And I think there's quite a bit of margin down the bottom, so we'll give that a bit of space down the bottom with margin bottom 16. And then we'll have a p tag for Scott green tea. We'll give this a class of text neutral 500, and we also have the Scott part of this, of the logo, that is bold. So if we wrap that in a span tag and give that a class of font bold, then next to that we're going to have a button. And we have an SVG in here, so if we go to the exercise files and you're looking for close.svg, I'm just going to open that with Sublime text, give that one a copy and paste it into our button. So let's just go over to our mock-up and see how we're getting on. Okay, we're making some progress. Let's go back to the code. So for the outer container of our navigation, I think we need to go, we're going to give it a width of 4/5, a height of full. Let's save that and see how we're going. There we go, that's looking a bit better. Let's go back to the code, and I think under our header section here we're going to add another div, and that is going to contain our list of navigation items. So each link within that list we are going to give a padding of 4, and we're going to make them a block level element, give them display block. And for our list itself, we're going to say list disk will be our style. We want the text to be black, font bold, and we'll give it some margin left of 4. Then we're going to need 4 of these. We're going to need one for home, one for product, one for shopping cart, and one for account. So let's save that and see how we're going. Yep, I'd say that is looking pretty good now. So I think it's finally time for us to write some Alpine. Let's head back over to our code. I'm just going to add in a little bit of space around our navigation here. So this is the container for the part that pops out from the side. This is the button that's going to actually open and close it. So the first step of making a Alpine component is you want to wrap everything in a div that contains the entire component. And on this div we're going to give it the xdata directive, and inside that we are going to set open to false. So open is a variable that we can set. We can name this whatever we like, but open makes the most sense for now. And setting it to false means that by default our navigation will be closed. Then under that we have our A tag that contains the menu icon. So what we're actually going to do is change this to a button. Then on this we're going to add our Alpine X on click. And when we click this button we are going to set open to not equal open. So basically we're going to set open to the opposite of what open is now. And this will toggle the menu open and closed. Then on the div that wraps around the navigation itself, we are going to add X show, and that is going to depend on the variable open. So when open is true, we'll see the navigation, and when open is false, it'll be hidden. We are also going to give this a inline style of display none, just so when the page first loads we make sure that we don't see this navigation. Okay, and on our button down here that is the close button, we also just want to add a X on click, and we are going to set open equal to false. And let's save that and go and see how we're getting on in the browser. So if I click our menu button, fingers crossed, there we go. See our menu open and close, and if I click this multiple times it toggles and the X closes. So that's it for this video. We have our navigation working, it opens and closes. In the next videos, as promised, we'll slow down and we'll recap everything that we've just learned in the last 3 videos, and that includes just going back over that little bit of Alpine we just added. Hey there, I hoped that you enjoyed the course. It's part of a larger course about getting started with Tailwind and Alpine. If you have any questions or need help, please leave a comment. I try to check these as often as possible. In the longer version of the course, from here we slow things down and review what we've just learned. We also add some more elements to the site. If you'd like to learn more, please click the link in the description to the full version of the course.